Welcome to Stories and Lessons. My name is Amy Ebert. I'm your host for today's podcast. Welcome back to the series, All Things Leadership. By the title of today's episode, you're probably wondering, what the heck is this analogy between Moses and the book by Spencer Johnson M.D.? Who moved my cheese? Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the prophet Moses. If you aren't, you might want to pick up a little book called the Bible and get yourself familiar with the story. He's mentioned in the Bible, in the Old Testament, more than anyone else, over 800 times. And the only person that is mentioned more than him in the entire Bible is David. So, of course, if anyone has more definitive information than I am presenting, feel free to put it in the comments. We're all here to learn. So that's totally cool. We're all here to learn and better ourselves. So if you have more definitive information than I have, please share. Side note, I saw Moses, the musical, in Branson, Missouri, in the beautiful Sight and Sound Theater. Gorgeous production, live animals, camels, the parting of the Red Sea. Like you feel like you're really in this experience. It was like, I'm like, is there real water in this place? It is such an immersive experience. This theater does such an amazing job. I highly recommend it. If you can go there, go there. They do gorgeous work. Now, in the story of Moses, he's leading the Israelites out of Egypt. Of course, I've skipped a lot of the story, but for the purpose of today's episode, we're going to start there. They are escaping slavery and moving into what is assured to be a better way of life, the Promised Land. So imagine, if you will, being indoctrinated to believe that you have a cap and a limit on what your life could be. Imagine being enslaved, right? You start out as a baby, you're ready to go, this looks like so much fun, I'm living, I'm having a good time, and then all of a sudden, over time, you're trained to believe, well, wait a second, there's this place up here that you're not allowed to go, there are certain people who have the power, they're going to be the ones that keep the power, and then there's this place where we're allowed to go, and that's it. That's it. Don't dream. Don't think of anything else. This is it. This is the cap. This is all you're getting. Okay. So that's what's being taught your whole life, years, decades. That's it. Okay. So this is the extent of how life is going to be. This is as good as it gets. Now, how challenging do you think it would be if that's the case? And then all of a sudden somebody comes along and it's just like, we're getting out of here and you're going to go live in this free life, okay? Do you think that new way of living is going to just be like, cool, all right, I'm free now? No, right? This takes faith, it takes transformation, it takes time. God felt like 40 years was a good amount of time to go through the transformations and have the experiences to finally come out on the other side. Hey, I'm a free person. I'm really living and breathing this, and I've escaped the matrix, essentially, right? Okay, so this is an experience. This is an experiential transition. Okay, so the Israelites are wandering the desert for 40 years. Now, I know all about the desert, living in Las Vegas, and I'm complaining by like 2 weeks into July. Right? I'm complaining that it's so hot. This is my last summer in Las Vegas, right? Every year. Okay. It's harsh. So picture it. You're in this vast, open, dry desert, but there's no casinos. There's no air conditioning. There's no Uber drivers. There's no great food, an amazing restaurant. There's no skyline. So I can only imagine the level of complaining, right? I mean, this would be rough. 40 years. Okay, after a couple of days, you might be like, cool, we're on, right? And then it's like, okay, couple weeks go by, we're like, okay, couple weeks, a year, couple years, 40 years. You might be complaining a little bit. They might be start to thinking things like, should we trust this guy? So he said that like, God told us we should trust him. We're going to get there. We're going to the Promised Land. I don't know about you, but maybe we should go back. Maybe how it wasn't so bad. We knew that hell, right? We knew that version of hell, and they were familiar with it. Familiarity. Comfort zone. This is now unknown. After a while, I'm sure the conviction has worn off. There's no proof. It's kind of like, are you sure that this guy's talking to, God's talking to him? So now imagine you're leading these people. You might be tempted to give up as well. You might be tempted to be like, you know what? Maybe we should. Maybe they're right. Because again, Moses is a person. Okay, so he's going to have some doubts along the way here. Okay, and then he might be feeling a little bit like, wait, they had no options before. I'm presenting possibility and options and possible opportunity for them, like kind of, they're kind of ungrateful. So I can imagine what's going on in that story. So I think you all remember the staff, right? The staff that Moses had, his staff, which played a very important role in his storyline. The staff becomes a tool for Moses to perform miracles and demonstrate God's power to the Israelites. Because they probably need to have seen some things, okay? So that there's some, all right, yeah, maybe, let's try it, right? So, first time a miracle is performed with the staff, Exodus 4, 3-4. Moses throws down the staff and it transforms into a snake, okay? So you might be like, yeah, this guy's might be legit. I don't know. That's kind of different. And then there's the second time, Moses uses the staff to turn the Nile River into blood. That's one of the plagues. That's Exodus 7:17. Okay, that's kind of a big deal. And then the third time, Moses strikes a rock with the staff, bringing forth the water, right? They're thirsty. So he's bringing forth the water for the thirsty. So, reminder of the setting. The Israelites are wandering in the desert for 40 years. They're thirsty. They're complaining about water. So Moses is probably at the point where he's just like, all right, I'm just going to do what I know. I'm going to do what worked before. It worked before, so why wouldn't he think that he's probably going to think it's going to work again, right? It's sensible. That makes sense, I think. So he uses his staff to strike the rock, thinking, he's probably frustrated, right? I'm like, I'm just going to hit this rock with the staff and get some water, and I need a little bit of peace. So I'm just going to do this thing that I've done before, and it worked before. But it didn't work this time. So he was a little frustrated with the Israelites complaining, and he disobeys God's instructions and strikes the rock twice. So this wasn't working. The old way of doing things, the way of doing it without stepping out in faith, right? Just, let me just do this thing, right? Let me just do this thing that worked before. Maybe a little arrogance mixed in with that, right? It wasn't working, okay? Hitting the rock with the staff was not working. So what did God want him to do? Instead, God instructs him, speak to the rock. So you could imagine that this is something he hasn't done before, okay? And every time there's a new thing that he has to trust God with, especially with the frustration and everything around him, there still has to be a step of faith. If God didn't want that from him, he could have just used the staff and the rock, and they have their water and they're on their way. But they have to believe and have faith in Moses as a leader. So when you want to inspire that in others, don't you also then have to step out in faith as well? So this was a test of faith for Moses. Simply repeating a past action wasn't going to get you to the promised land. Okay, we'll revisit that. Now, you're probably all wondering, what the heck does this have to do with the book, Who Moved My Cheese? If you've read the book, now that I've asked the question out loud, your mind might be considering a correlation here. If you haven't read the book, here's a quick synopsis of the tale. In both stories, the characters are facing a difficult reality. In the book, Who Moved My Cheese, the characters sniff and scurry, these are mice, live comfortably in a maze that's filled with cheese, representing just a routine life. We do these things, we're hanging out in our maze, and we're getting our cheese, okay? One day the cheese disappears. So they are expecting it. They're still expecting it for a while, but it's not coming back. Okay? So they are going to have to be forced to adapt or die. So the four characters in the story, there's the mice, Sniff, and Scurry. They are immediately desperate without their cheese. Sniff uses his scent, his sniffing, to start his quest for the new cheese. Scurry just runs around aimlessly, without any forethought, just completely chaotic, right? So for Hem and Haw, the cheese is a metaphor for a familiar place, a comfort zone. Hem does not want to change under any circumstances, and Haw is startled by change, okay? But then just kind of realizes, I'm going to have to change. I have to adapt here. I have to figure out a new way. I have to have some faith in a new possibility, or it's not going to happen for me. So with Moses, the Israelites, fear of the unknown hinders them from leaving their familiar surroundings. Even if the familiar surroundings, their comfort zone, is suffering. Like with, the mice, it's like, okay, there's no cheese here now anymore, So Sniff initially resists the change, clinging to the hope that the cheese will return. He embodies the fear of letting go and venturing into the unknown. So regarding leadership and inspiration, Moses acts as a leader by stepping into faith, being a guide, providing hope, and being inspired, so therefore creating inspiration for the Israelites. He has to step out in faith as well. In Who Moved My Cheese, Scurry's journey represents finding new opportunities because the old way isn't going to produce the same result anymore. Kind of like the staff with the rock. It's not happening. We have to step out in faith with growth. It's all about growth. So the lesson in these stories is whatever you want it to be, of course, but one to consider is true fulfillment and elevation lies in the uncharted landscapes of faith and possibility. Having said that, thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you got value from what we've provided, why not spread the love by sharing this episode with someone? Subscribe to or follow the show so you never miss an episode, and give us a positive 5-star review or a thumbs up, depending on which platform you're currently on, and share with others. For more stories and lessons, check out some of my other episodes in the series. Thank you for showing up, and be well.